Today I'm going to show you 4 different tarp shelters that you can set up. These are the basics. They're very solid. They can be used in different scenarios depending on the weather, your environment, the temperature, those kinds of things. All right, so when we're going to hang a tarp, there's a couple different ways to do it depending on the tarp configuration. For A-frames, lean-tos, and several other tarp configurations, it's best to tie a ridge line between 2 trees or 2 stands of some kind. And there are several different ways to make a ridge line, different knots that you can use. People have systems, toggles, all these different things. Those are worth looking at, but I'm going to show you a very simple way using only 1 knot. It's a very simple knot, and it'll allow you to easily put it up and take it down in no time at all. And you don't have to have a dedicated ridgeline system in your pack. You can use any length of rope, including this 50-foot rope, which we don't need all of it, but we will be able to tie it in such a way that we can just leave part of it hanging down. So we don't have to cut up this rope. And then I'll show you how to tie the tarp to the ridgeline. Just wanted to go over a couple of terms, what we call the anatomy of a knot. I'll use terms like the working end, which is the end that we're going to be twisting and turning to make the knots. The standing end is going to be the end that goes, back this way, right? So depending on which side you're working on, this is the working end, and this is the standing end. All right, so another term is a bite. And a bite is basically where you bend the rope. Working end and the standing end are parallel to each other. So the overhand knot starts with a crossing turn, which is different from a bite in the sense that the working end actually crosses over the standing end, and you get this number. So your standard overhand knot is a crossing turn, which is your working end over your standing end. And then you take the working end around and come back up through the loop, making this little pretzel shape. And then you pull it tight and it becomes this. The problem with this is it's really hard to get undone, especially as you apply pressure to it. All right. So what we're going to try to do is make a slipping overhand knot. You do your crossing turn, and then you make a bite on the working end, which is parallel, right? Just pinch it together, and you put that through, and then you can tighten that up. And that is a slipping. Now, what's great about it is it slips, so you can tighten it down, or you can loosen it. The other thing that's great about it, kind of like your shoes, if you want to undo it, you just pull the working end out, and it's completely gone. So I'll show you again. We'll make our crossing turn, make a bite from the working end, come back around through, and then to get it undone, that's it. So we're going to tie our first end to this tree here, and we're going to go around the tree and do that slipping overhead knot. All right, so we have the working end of the rope. And bring it around the tree, just like that. And we're going to make our loop with the working end on top. Bring it to the other side here. And you can just squeeze this with your fingers. That kind of holds it in place. And then you're just going to make a bite out of the end here and bring it through. And as you pull that loop through, I kind of hold the end, the working end with the standing end here. Just kind of pull it together. And then you have your knot. All right, and this knot can be loosened and tightened. And I like to keep this knot loose. You don't want to pull it too tight. When you pull the standing end and push the knot in towards the tree, it stays perfectly tight, and we're going to tighten it on the other side. But leaving this knot here loose makes it easier to go ahead and break down after it's had pressure on it. So we're here at our tree, bringing the ridge line over. And we're going to bring this around. And I recommend bunching up the end of your rope if you have a lot of it. That way you can do what we're going to do next. But essentially here, this is an opportunity to go ahead and pull that ridgeline tight. All right. Then we're going to come over the top. Our working end now over the top. And then this is where we're really going to get some tension in that ridge line. So we can pull that. And then wrap the working end back around. We've brought our line around, so the working end is now parallel with the ridge line. Bring this to where we went over the ridge line, so right there. And then we're gonna make our slipping overhand knot. Make your overhand loop. And then this working end, you can just bring through here. And that's it. So being able to deploy your tarp quickly and take it down quickly is definitely a tactical importance. Even with just the weather, the environment, but certainly if you're trying to move quickly to be avoided for whatever reason. All right, so now let's get into doing a lean-to configuration. It's the most basic one, and it's nice. It leaves you an open side to view nature or whatever is in your surroundings. And it allows you to have a fire, which I really like. So it's my favorite, actually. And it's one of the most easy to put up. Some of these principles will apply to the A-frame as well. But we're going to talk about how to tie the tarp to the ridge line. Okay, that's the next step. We tie the tarp to the ridge line on both sides, and then we basically anchor the tarp to the ground with the other two sides. And that's our lean-to, which is like this. All right, so we're going to start out with that trusty slipping overhand knot again. This is the corner tie out point of my tarp. Sometimes it's the grommet. Sometimes you put a rock inside your tarp like this, and you wrap a knot around the rock, and that works as well as anything. But this is a nice, strong, reinforced corner of a tarp with this tie-off strap. So all right, so we have our tie off to the tarp. We'll do that on the other side. And then with this end, we're gonna tie it to the ridge line, okay? We're gonna use a knot called a taut line hitch, which I'll show you now. All right, so I have the end of my tarp on this side here, and the rest of my tarp going that way. This is where the tree is over here. I have the ridge line, which is red, and I have the tie off here, the working end, is orange. So we're going to take the working end, go over the ridge line, and we're going to wrap it around twice, going towards the tarp end. And then we're going to bring the working end up over here. And what I like to do is make a little loop here. And then you're going to bring that working end, make a bite, and pull it through that loop. And then we have a slipping taut line so that it can be done by pulling the working end out, just like the other knot. Now, what's great about this knot, the taut line hitch, is that if I pull the tarp this way, it does not move. But if I let it go, there's no tension on it, then I can move it back and forth. So I can find the perfect place for it and then pull it tight and it won't move. And then it's done. Now, I find this can come loose. So you can take the working end again, make another bite, pass it through, and then pull that tight. That way, it's not likely to come undone. It still works this way. There are other knots that you can use to do this, but this one's just real easy. It's the one you learn in Boy Scouts, so why not? And so our tarp is taut along the ridge line, which is what we want. And then all we have to do is go ahead and tap down our corners. So we got the basic lean-to here. I'll show you on the other side. If you had something to tie off to in this direction, you could take another guy line from here and pull it out like this, give yourself a little bit more room on the inside. But this works too. And then you can even tighten these a little bit more. Make sure it's nice and taut. You could also stake down in the middle of the tarp here, not just the corners. And as you can see here, there's plenty of room. I even have I can't quite stand up, I'm 6'3". This could be at a higher angle, but the lower the angle, the more shelter it kind of provides. The higher the angle, you know, the more room you have. And if you have a fire here, you're trying to maximize the heat from the fire, a 45-degree pitch is good. This is about 45 degrees, maybe 40. But as you can see, there's lots of room back here. I can set my bed up further back here and still have a fire that's covered by the tarp in case it rains. Okay, so we're going to continue on with our tutorial, now moving on to the A-frame tarp configuration. Just real quick, I wanted to show you, if you do have to cut the end of a paracord or whatever kind of cord you're using nylon, then you don't want this to become frayed over time, become loose and ruin your rope. So just take a lighter, just give that a melt, and it basically just caps the end off so it doesn't fray. And now we'll move on to getting the A-frame set up. So with the A-frame, we're probably going to have the ridge line set up lower than we had the lean-to, because we have to drape the tarp over it and tie it down on both sides. I'm just going to drape this over. And as we can see, we can go ahead and tie this down, but the pitch, the angle of the tarp is just going to be pretty high. So no problem. You can just adjust the ridge line. I can just give myself a little slack on this side, loosen this one, lower it down. We'll try waist height for me anyways. There it is. And this is what it looks like. Go inside here. And as you can see, plenty of shelter, plenty of length here, to where even if some water is kind of coming through these openings here, it's not going to get you wet if you're inside there. Obviously you want to put a little tarp down or some kind of ground cover. That could be duff, spruce limbs, things like that. That way you give yourself insulation, and you can put your gear in here and you can sleep in here and it will keep you dry. There it is. You can adjust it here and there, height-wise. Okay, so this configuration, much like the lean-to, can also be flown above the ground. So this is called being pitched when it's tacked to the ground like this. If you make the ridge line higher, you can actually tack down the corners using guy lines. And so this would be up off the ground. You can make a dining fly, that kind of thing. And if it's nice weather and you want a little bit of a breeze, if it's hot especially, then that's maybe a way to go. In fact, that's how you set up a hammock canopy with a tarp like this, is basically, tying it above your where you're going to sleep in your hammock, and then tacking down the sides using guy lines. So for the flying sea fly, whatever it's called, you're going to go you're gonna make yourself a little porch. So it's gonna be a little overhang right here. And so you wanna tie the second tie off to the ridge line. We're gonna leave ourselves some tarp at the bottom going back underneath. So we're gonna go to the second, not the last tie off, but the second tie off, and that's what we're gonna tack to the ground. All right, now back over on this side, we can go ahead and tack down our floor here. So this gives us a nice little floor if we don't have another tarp that we can lay our stuff on, we can sleep on. And now you have your porch, which is kind of an overhang here. That you have two options with. So this can either come out to a tree or you can tack it down to the ground. And if it's a bigger tarp, you can obviously make a much bigger C. You could change the pitch of the rear part there to make it higher or lower, depending on the size of your tarp. So there you go, there's the flying C. So a plow point shelter is very versatile. It's it's really easy to set up for one thing, and it does a great job of blocking from wind and weather, basically. So with all shelters, what you want to do is set up the back of it towards the prevailing wind. Okay, so if the wind was coming from that direction, we want the back of the shelter to be towards that direction, essentially. So we're going to set it up like this, using that tree. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack down the back side of it here, tie it to the tree with a guy line, and I'll show you how to do that, and then we'll just tack the sides down, and that's basically it. We'll just bring this through here. Draw this as tight as we can. Our slipping taut line hitch. I've tied off a guy line from the center. If there was something taller behind, you could do it up higher. That gives you more room underneath. So as you can see, there's lots of length in this setup, and you have sides that protect you from the wind more. So if you're trying to stay out of the wind, this is a good solution. So I've shown you 4 tarp shelter configurations. There's actually many more, and we'll get into some of those in an advanced tarp shelter video. But for now, you have 4 to go with. Start practicing, start tying those knots, and enjoy the outdoors.